Welcome to Daba Markets Talk, the podcast that uncovers the trends and events shaping African economies, finance, and markets, with a special focus on Francophone West Africa. Our regular edition is published at the weekend, but today we are launching something new, the first ever midweek edition of Daba Markets Talk. These shorter episodes will help you understand major developments while they are still unfolding. And we begin with a deal that could redefine African capital markets: the planned IPO of the Dangote Petroleum Refinery. For decades, Nigeria lived with a costly oil paradox. The country produced and exported crude oil, sent it abroad for refining, and then imported petrol, diesel, aviation fuel, and other finished products, often using scarce foreign currency. The Dangote Refinery was built to change that. Located in Lekki, Lagos, it began operations in 2024 and can process 650,000 barrels per day. It supplies Nigeria and export markets, and the plan is to expand capacity to 1.4 million barrels per day. This is bigger than one industrial project. It represents a shift from exporting raw materials to processing and exporting higher-value products. And now, public investors may soon be able to own part of it. On August 4th, Daba reported that Dangote Petroleum Refinery had formally filed an IPO application with Nigeria's Securities and Exchange Commission, moving it closer to a listing on the Nigerian Exchange, or NGX. But filing is not approval. Investors cannot yet subscribe. The final share price, number of shares, stake to be sold, and official subscription dates have not been published. Current reports point to a prospectus in September and an offer that could close in October, subject to SEC approval and market conditions. So, how big could the deal be? The refinery is reportedly seeking to raise around $5 billion. If completed at that size, it would become the largest IPO in African capital market history. The proposed raise would equal more than 4% of the NGX's total market value. A transaction of that scale would not simply add another company to the exchange. It could increase market depth, attract institutional capital, and raise the NGX's profile globally. A recent private placement offers another important clue. In July, the refinery raised $2.5 billion for a 6% stake. Demand was reportedly 3.7 times the amount offered, and the deal implied a valuation of roughly $40 billion. That demand suggests major investors see value in the refinery's scale, export potential, and central role in Nigeria's fuel market. But the valuation also deserves scrutiny. Daba's analysis notes that the implied $40 billion valuation is above the market values of several listed refiners with similar capacity. Public investors will have to decide whether Dangote deserves that premium because of its location, export reach, expansion strategy, and strategic importance. The IPO proceeds are expected to support the expansion of the Lagos facility from 650,000 to 1.4 million barrels per day. Reports also say the group wants to develop another refinery on Kenya's coast with East African governments. That regional ambition is why this story matters beyond Nigeria. The primary listing is expected on the NGX, but markets in South Africa, Kenya, Egypt, Ghana, and Rwanda have discussed ways for their investors to participate. A direct cross-listing is not currently planned. Instead, access could come through depository receipts or exchange-traded products linked to the Nigerian shares. For Francophone West Africa, this is particularly relevant. The BRVM already demonstrates how a regional exchange can connect multiple countries. A successful Dangote listing, supported by products that reach investors across borders, could strengthen the case for deeper links between the NGX, the BRVM, and other African exchanges. Another closely watched issue is the possibility of dividends being paid in Naira or US dollars. For investors worried about currency depreciation, dollar dividends would be attractive. The refinery earns foreign currency from exports, which may help support hard currency payouts. However, this is not guaranteed. The final dividend structure still requires approval, and reliable dollar payments would depend on the company generating enough foreign currency cash flow. The risks are also significant. Refining is capital-intensive and cyclical. Earnings can be affected by crude supply, fuel prices, refining margins, operating rates, debt, government policy, and movements in the Naira. The expansion plan will require capital and strong execution. A high IPO valuation could reduce investors' margin of safety, while the shares may be volatile after listing. The prospectus will therefore be critical. It should show the company's financial statements, ownership structure, governance, debt, use of proceeds, dividend policy, and the percentage of shares available to the public. Until the SEC approves that document, reports about prices, allocations, or subscription channels should not be treated as official. So, what should investors watch next? Watch for the prospectus, the final valuation, the free float, the confirmed dividend policy, and the structure through which investors outside Nigeria may participate. Ultimately, the Dangote Refinery IPO is about more than one company. It is a test of whether African capital markets can finance African industrial transformation at scale. It is also a test of whether local retail investors, pension funds, and institutions can gain access to assets that have traditionally remained private. If successful, this transaction could be remembered not only as Africa's largest IPO, but as a turning point in how African companies raise capital and how African investors build wealth. That is it for the first midweek edition of Daba Markets Talk. To discover investment opportunities across African markets, download the Daba app. For deeper research, market intelligence, and investment insights, explore Daba Pro. And to grow your knowledge of investing, markets, and personal finance, learn with Daba Academy. This episode is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice. Always read the official prospectus and assess the risks before investing. If you found this episode insightful, like it, leave a comment, and share it with someone who wants to better understand African markets. Thank you for listening. We will see you at the weekend for the regular edition of Daba Markets Talk.